Hi, it's Pete here from See Your Toes Again, and this is podcast number 21. Today I'm joined with a wonderful young woman by the name of Carlie. She's currently 40 years old. She was, by her own admission, a very large girl all of her life, and she talks about that struggle. At one stage she was 20 stone, which for the metric people in the world comes to about 138 kilograms, or a bit over 300 pounds. She struggled all of her life until the surgeons gave her a gastric bypass. So that's given her a huge change to her life, but it still didn't get rid of the fact that she had to do a whole lot of hard work. We talk in detail about the foods she eats, about her battles with food, about her addictions to food, and I hope if you are struggling with your weight, or your health for that matter, I hope you get something out of this. I found it very inspirational, and I think you will too. Thank you very much. So good morning, Carlie. How are you?
Good morning. I am good, thank you.
I believe, to get the ball rolling, I believe you're a fairly avid football fan as well.
I am, yes, very happy with yesterday's results. Being a Palace fan, the hammering that we gave the Hammers, shall we say, went down very well in my house.
Yeah, okay. So Crystal Palace, I must admit I don't know a lot about them. Mainly because A, I'm a foreigner, and B, I'm up north anyway. Yeah, but I see your tweets, and you are very passionate about it.
Yeah, good old South London team. As far as I'm concerned, where football is concerned, you support your local team. And so I was brought up in Balham in South London, and my closest football team was Crystal Palace. And so
Yeah, okay.
that's where we were with that. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself. You're 39. At some stage there, you must have had serious health problems or weight problems or both.
Indeed, yeah. I I had always been big, even as a kid. I was overweight. This is something that runs in my family. All of the women in my family are bigger girls, not necessarily overweight, but bigger girls. I guess by their BMI, they would be considered overweight, but they are all on the larger size, shall we say. And so weight to me growing up was something that I was always constantly aware of. I was always bigger than the other girls. I wasn't particularly athletic because I had asthma, still do, obviously. And so it was one of those things growing up where I'd done a lot of walking. So as I went into my teenage years, I kind of lost a lot of weight. However, when I got into my 20s, I then started gaining a lot of weight. And by the time I was 27, I weighed about 22 stone. And I spent the last 10 years from 27 until I was 37 around that weight. A good 10 years of being 22 stone.
Yeah, okay. I'm just going to put it into my computer and find out what 22 stone looks like. Just
Yeah,
convert.
I'm not good with the kilos and things. I get confused.
No, that's right. So convert 22 stone to kilograms for a start is 139 kilos. So that is just for the listeners to get their head around. That's a little bit less than two of me. I don't mean this to sound terrible. It's just,
Oh yeah, no.
reality.
Statistically.
Yeah. And then converting a 22 stone to pounds should be about 300, I would have thought. 308 pounds for the American listeners. Because that's the problem. I've got no idea what a stone looks like because I've always worked in kilos. I come from a metric.
Good old English metric system.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind, but
country.
we're not even supposed to use this metric system anymore, but we still do.
Yeah, and everyone talks to me about stones in the UK, and I've got no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, 1 stone is 14 pounds, I believe.
Okay, right. Yep. So we've got 22 stone, 308 pounds, and what did I say? 138 kilograms or something around that mark. So yeah, that is quite big. And how old were you then? You were 27 at that stage.
So the at 27, I was 22 stone. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And how were you in other ways? I mean, that's big, let's face it. But
Yep.
apart from the weight itself, how did that make you feel? How were you mentally for a start?
So I I was the fat funny friend who everybody loved because I was so confident and I hid all of the insecurities with confidence, with being overly confident and trying my hardest to be happy with who I was and the size that I am. And at one point, I even done plus size modeling for a catalogue that we have in the UK called Simply Be. Like I was big, but I was still doing quite well and inside completely and utterly miserable, but hiding it as best I could um, from everybody else. And yeah, that's probably the worst thing because you're not dealing with the issues that you've got. I didn't know how to deal with the issues that I've got. I'm very aware now that what I have is an eating disorder, because I do find myself now overeating or binging, and I have to make a real conscious effort to stop myself. However, that was something that was never addressed. I was never told by the NHS that that's what I had. I didn't know what it was because outside I was happy.
Yeah.
And yeah, now I know exactly what that is.
And it's bloody tricky, especially when you don't know what's going on and you just carry on and hope that at
Mm,
some stage all of this will end. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and it was a similar situation in respect that it becomes the norm. It becomes the way you are, and it becomes almost your personality or your persona of, well, this is my life.
yep,
Um, this is what I can expect.
absolutely.
And
Yeah, absolutely. I was 100% at 27 years old, resigned to being um the big girl amongst everybody, all of my friends. I was bigger than anybody that I knew. I was just me. And the thing is, even when I lost weight, my friends all said to me, "Yeah, but we never thought of you as big." Well, maybe you should have. Maybe if someone had said something somewhere along the line, it might have helped me because all of my friends who were being supportive or thought they were being supportive, essentially were just kind of enabling me, I guess, if that's a way of putting it. It was just, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. You're perfect the way that you are. And yeah, I mean, they may have thought that because that's who they knew me as, but they didn't know the ins and outs of my life, going home and sitting there crying, eating a huge great big bag of Doritos whilst crying, simultaneously watching the same shows over and over again because I had like terrible anxiety. And even watching a new program would throw me into a bout of anxiety because I didn't know what was going to happen. It's all mental health. Huge, great big gaps in the market as far as I'm concerned with regards to overeating disorders and RNHS.
yeah, that's right. It's part of because this podcast is really designed to help people get healthier. That was my
Hmm.
ambition. And in the near future, I think in the middle of May, I've got a lady who will be speaking who runs a mental health group on Meetup. Meetup is a big bunch of groups. I do Meetup walks, so Meetup is a massive business. It's like a community, I suppose. You can go on Meetup, Meetup. This isn't an ad. And you can join any group you want. So I'm in like half a dozen different rambling groups, walking groups around Yorkshire, and you go on there and just there's just a whole bunch of other people that are like-minded. Now, this particular group is for mental health, and I didn't even realize Meetup had mental health groups, but yeah, there you go. And she's going to be chatting in the near future about all of that. And what I'm getting at is it really intrigues me because mental health is such a big thing and it affects so many people. And it has been shown that a lot of mental health can certainly be, I'm choosing my words carefully here, but sort of controlled or minimized with the right foods going down your throat.
Mhm. Absolutely. I,
Mm.
I would 100% agree with that. The the difference in my personality when I am eating correctly is quite astounding. So obviously being a woman, it's difficult for a guy to understand the ins and outs of periods and whatnot else, but we do get particularly emotional at certain stages during the month. And if I am struggling 1 month maybe with hormone imbalances, if I'm eating correctly, it doesn't affect me anywhere near as much as it does if I am eating badly or I have been binging. And this is something that I have had to really, really learn, that if I am feeling emotional, I am not to go to that fridge and start eating. I cannot make myself feel better with a bar of dairy milk. I have to draw the line and go, stop. These are your hormones. They will be gone in a couple of days, and eating that will make you feel worse. It will not make you feel better.
Yeah, that's really difficult to do when you're in that hole at the time. It's always
Absolutely.
easy to look out of the hole afterwards and go, oh, why did I do that? But being in that
Yeah.
hole and looking out, it can be bloody hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it, because as well, when you are hormone driven, you sometimes you do it and you don't even realize that you're doing it. You know, the amount of times I walk out into the kitchen and just pick a biscuit up whilst I'm cooking dinner and go, why did I do that? Why did I do that? We don't even realize that we're doing it sometimes. We just don't. And I think as well, like I said, with all the hormone imbalances, especially when you're going through a period or whatever, you're exhausted, you're tired, there's, you know, hormones flying around, and your body goes, give me some sugar, it's the only way I'm going to be able to deal with the rest of today. And so you kind of go to yourself, right, well, I could go out there and eat a whole bar of chocolate or whatever, but tomorrow I'm not going to feel okay. It's not going to solve the problem that it will solve at the end of eating that bar of chocolate. It's not. And so you do have to say to yourself, right, what can I have? That's sugar. That is not going to make me feel awful tomorrow. And so you say to yourself, oh, grapes. I like grapes. Let's eat a few grapes and see how I feel after that. You really have to make such a huge conscious effort. And it's so much easier just to go outside and pick up that bar of chocolate. It's so much easier. It's that instant gratification that you want in that very, very moment. And you have to be so, so conscious of what you're doing all the time.
Mm, yeah. Okay. That is really interesting. It's interesting to hear it from your perspective because I think a lot of people may be in that boat and not realize it. They just think that their all of those issues are just something that they've had to learn to cope with.
And I think
Mm.
that's true of a lot of women, especially a lot of women that I've spoken to who have, you know, plainly said to me, but I can be the best at my diet, at my lifestyle change for 3 weeks out of the month. And then I will get to that 1 week and it all goes out of the window. It's like I have no control. It's so easy just to go, I'm just going to eat this chocolate. I'm going to eat this Easter egg because it's in the kitchen. I'm just going to eat it. And then you kind of tell yourself, well, if I've eaten it, it's not in the house anymore and then I can't eat it again. No, but you have to stop yourself from going and buying more chocolate when you do your next shop then. You know, there's always something. And
Mm.
we have to be responsible for ourselves. We have, the buck stops with us ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then at some stage you got to a point where you thought, I need to do something about this.
So the defining moment for me was, let me see, my daughter was 2. So it must have been around 2017. I was going on holiday and I got on the aeroplane and I couldn't do the seatbelt up. I had to ask for a seatbelt extender. And that was horrifying. I mean, before that, I hadn't been on a plane for maybe 5 years. So I think I had gained even more weight by then. But I just wouldn't weigh myself. And so in 2017, got on the plane, had to ask for a seatbelt extender and was absolutely mortified. And I was going to Italy. I got to Italy, had a nice holiday, and then had to ask for the seatbelt extender on the way back. And I got home, and the following day, I rang my doctors and said, someone needs to see me. I need an appointment and I need it urgently. And I went into that doctor's and basically burst into tears and just said, I don't know how to stop this. I don't know what to do for the best. He looked at my weight chart that he had, and so he could see that I had gone on diets and lost a load of weight and then gained it all back and then lost a load of weight again on another diet. And it seemed on my scales on my chart that I would get down to 18 stone. And then for whatever reason, I don't know whether it was hormones, I don't know what it was, but for some reason, I just couldn't get past that 18 stone. And he had it all on his chart. You can see it on the medical files. And so he sort of said to me, what do you think would be the best thing here? And I said, look, I've weighed myself. I'm 22 stone. I can tell you now, I will go on a diet quite happily. I said, but I won't get past that 18 stone mark. So he said, right, get on a diet. I'm going to put you forward for a gastric bypass on the NHS because I have other medical issues. So I had something called gastroesophageal reflux disease, which was so bad at one point I had to have that camera down my throat so they could see I was burning away my esophagus. Other things as well. So I had terrible sciatica because of how big I was. I couldn't do my job properly, could barely walk for long periods. And he said, I think this is going to be the best thing for you. But first and foremost, you have to go away and show me that you're serious about this. I want you to come back in 6 months' time. And within that 6 months' time, I want you to have lost a stone. I said, okay. And I went away and I'd done it. And I think I actually lost 2 stone in that 6 months. And so within the space of about a year, I had gone down to the 18 stone and managed to keep myself there up until I had like a 3-year-long wait for the gastric bypass on the NHS. And of course, we went into COVID as well. So that prolonged things for me. But yeah, so eventually November of 2020, I was given a gastric bypass on the NHS. And after that, I then lost another 6 stone. So in total, 10 stone, which I think is 63 kilos in total. I went from 22 stone down to 18 stone. And then I went from 18 stone down to 12.
So 12 stone is 168 pounds. And if I grab my calculator, 168 divided by 2.2 is 76 kilos.
Okay.
Does that sound about right?
I guess so, yeah.
And 76 kilos is a pretty healthy weight. That's pretty good, I would have thought. How tall are you, incidentally?
I am 5'6", 5'6.5", I'm told. Apparently that half's quite, I don't know.
Yep, okay. So, yeah, you and I aren't too dissimilar, but then I'm fairly small in my frame anyway. I work hard and I try my very best to keep my body weight down and stuff. So at that stage, then you were down to 12 stone. Yeah. And so was that all from the gastric bypass then?
So like I said, so I started off at 22 and on my own calorie counting, I went down to 18 stone. Yep. And then after I had the gastric bypass, I then lost another 6 stone, which took me down to 12 stone. Wait, 12.
Yes, great. So with regard to post-gastric bypass then, was that literally because you couldn't eat more? Did you change your diet? Did you change the foods you were eating? Or was it just because your body couldn't digest as much? Or do you have an idea on that?
I really don't know. So like I said, I would always just fluctuate. It would go up, it would go down, it would go up, it would go down. And so for some reason, I would get to 18 stone and my body just didn't want to lose anymore. So I could be really quite strict with myself and I could lose weight doing calorie counting, making sure that I was eating a certain amount. But there's so many things that your body does, which I learned after having the gastric bypass. There's the whoosh effect, which is essentially your body kind of holding on to all of the water because it's like, well, hold on a minute, you're losing all this weight and we don't know what to do. And then all of a sudden it lets go. And there's so many things that it could have been, but essentially my body wouldn't get past that 18 stone mark. I have no idea why. And I would continue on for months and months. And then it would get to a point where I go, do you know what? If this is just who I'm supposed to be, I'll stay here. And then that would be it. I would be back to eating, terrible foods again, and at one point or another, there were points where I was so tired, or my sciatica was so bad, that I just didn't even want to stand out in the kitchen and cook. I was too tired. I was running around after a child, and I was so many stone overweight that I just didn't want to cook. So then it's ordering a takeaway.
Yeah.
I live on a high road. There's literally, from where I am, probably 6 takeaway restaurants downstairs that I could literally just go down to and pick something up. And so it got to a point where I had got to 18 stone, had tried for months and months and not shifted any more weight, and then just decided, you know what, this is obviously who I'm supposed to be. I'm just going to eat what I want to eat now. And then gradually the weight would go back up again. And then I would be 22 stone and even worse off. So it's like a vicious cycle. You just go round and round.
Right. So you got your gastric bypass, and you somehow managed to go from 18 stone down to 12 stone as a result of that bypass.
Yeah.
I'm going to show my ignorance here, and I'm sure other listeners are as ignorant as me. I'm hoping I'm not the most ignorant person in the world. I could very well be. What's the difference between a gastric bypass and like a gastric band or something of that nature? Is there a difference?
So there's 3 different types. So, actually, there's 4. So there is the balloon. The balloon is put inside your stomach and inflated, and that means that you can eat less. That is non-surgical. That is something that they can, actually, it might be surgical, I'm not sure, but that is something that's very easily done. They can put it in and take it out as and when you want it. There is a gastric band. That band is placed around your stomach, and essentially once it's placed around your stomach, it then makes it really difficult for the food to go down the tube, because you've got this band around it. You've still got your stomach, but it's harder for the food to go down, and that kind of trains your brain into thinking that you can't eat as much. There is the gastric sleeve. The sleeve is essentially elongating your esophagus. So you've just got a tube. Rather than having the big sort of kidney-shaped stomach, you have got just one tube that goes straight from your esophagus, and they staple it all the way down, and then they put it into your intestines. So it's just like a tube. The gastric bypass, which is what I had, is where they take a huge amount of your stomach away and they leave you with a very small little pouch. I was told that the pouch right at the start is about the size of an egg. So you can imagine that's not a lot of food that you're able to get into your stomach. I was given the gastric bypass because the gastric sleeve, for someone like me who suffers with really, really terrible heartburn, it doesn't matter what I eat. I could drink a glass of water and get heartburn from it. It's not good. I was told that the gastric sleeve could make that worse. That's why they didn't go for that with me. So I had the gastric bypass where I had the very teeny tiny little pouch, which was essentially the size of an egg. Now that does over years start to stretch. You can stretch your stomach back out. There are many, probably millions of people that have had a gastric bypass and then 10 years later have already gained a load of that weight back. And so this is something at the moment that I'm really, really conscious of, because slowly my weight is starting to creep up, not a lot, but it's starting to creep up. And so I've gone from being 12 stone to 12 stone 6. And if I was to stay happily between 12 stone and 12 stone 6, then that would be fine. But it will go up unless like I said, the gastric bypass is a tool. It's not a miracle. And so you have to make sure that your head is right before everything else will slot into place. And so I'm having a real conscious effort at the moment, not entirely sure why at the moment, but I'm having to have a real big chat with myself to stop myself falling back into that kind of binge eating process, which is essentially, I'm bored, so I'm going to eat. You have to stop yourself from doing these things, even when you've had gastric surgery, because you will eat through it. You will. If you're a food addict, you will eat through it.
This is my intermission in the middle of the show. I hope you've been enjoying it. We'll be straight back to it in a minute. I just wanted to give you a quick message. If you're in a position where you are trying to lose weight, or you're trying to gain weight for that matter, or you're trying to get rid of metabolic disorders, regardless of what they are, a huge number of chronic illnesses can be repaired or rectified with the correct diet. I've written a book about this. It's all about the ketogenic diet, and it does go through how you can learn how to eat the right foods and get your health back on spec. It's called See Your Toes Again, the same as this podcast is called. It's available only on Amazon. It's about, it's certainly under £10 or sort of $11 or $12 US. And it's also available on Kindle. If you're interested, grab it. And if you do grab it, then please have a good read and leave me a review. That would be wonderful. Thank you very much. Now, back to the show. So you were talking about how you're going to keep putting weight on if you don't change your psyche. So
yeah, your mindset. And the thing is, there are so many things out there to help people that have got issues with things like bulimia and anorexia and purging. There's a lot of resources for people who suffer with that sort of eating disorder. But there's only now starting to get a little bit more for people who have got overeating disorders. And even then, to be completely honest, I just don't think that it's taken particularly seriously. There is a huge gap in schooling in England for children learning about foods and what food is healthy and what food is unhealthy, and making healthy choices is only now something that they're starting to bring into schools. When I went to schools in the 90s, I mean, every single lunchtime it was sausage rolls and burger and chips. There was nothing else available in our canteen. And it wasn't until the likes of Jamie Oliver, who started going in and moaning about the old turkey Twizzlers and dinosaurs and things that we was all being served, that schools and their systems then started looking at what could be done. But yeah, I mean, I really do think there's a huge gap there for people that suffer with overeating disorders and for the education of it. At the moment, I'm trying to kind of take it in hand myself with some talking therapy about the reason I have this relationship with food. There are so many people out there that have got terrible relationships with food, but they don't realize that they've got a terrible relationship with food. You know, there are so many people who will starve themselves for 2 or 3 days out of the week so that they can then eat whatever the hell they want out of the rest of the week. Whereas you should be consciously making an effort to eat your 5 a day, to make sure that you're drinking 2 liters of water a day. And I genuinely think if we had more help out there, the system would work better. Our NHS is completely and utterly strained by people who are overweight, but people that are overweight just haven't learned what they need to learn. As far as I'm concerned, I never got that. I never got that kind of thing. Even when I was in secondary school and we done food technology, it was all about learning the marketing of foods and cereal bars and how to sell them. It wasn't the health benefits of eating this against this and, you know, the calorie intake, the fat intake, the sugar intake. There was none of that. There was never any of that. So I would like to think that schools now are starting to educate kids a little bit better, but as yet I haven't seen it. I have a 9-year-old daughter who, of course, wants to eat all the chocolate and all the crisps and all the sweets, you know, and so having to have that conversation with her about making conscious efforts about what she's eating and the fact that it's down to her to make sure that she's doing the right thing and drinking enough water is a big deal. And it's something that should be being taught in schools. I certainly feel like I missed out on that portion of education whilst I was at school, most definitely.
I was speaking with a lady, in fact, the previous podcast, which is number 20. This is podcast number 21. And so I was speaking with Christine from Idaho just the other night and recording it, obviously. And she spoke for quite a while about her addiction to sugar. Her breaking that addiction to sugar, and of course through processed foods, because so many processed foods are packed full of sugar, even the healthy ones. You know, I'll have that healthy low-fat yogurt, which is full of sugar, or that yummy granola, that's got to be healthy for me. I saw the granola in my housemates, one of my housemates bought box of granola, and so I just looked at the back of the label, and the amount of sugar in this granola was horrific,
Yeah.
and they're selling it as this healthy product, and there's just so much sugar and just so much everything, and so she was talking about trying to break that sugar addiction, and that was very difficult for her, and I'm wondering whether that's got a lot to do with your binging and a lot of other people binging, because it's you got your voices saying, no, I know this is bad for me, but at the same time, if you're addicted to something like that, you've also got your other voices saying, come on, I really need this, get it down me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it would be the same for anybody that's, addicted to smoking or addicted to drugs. You are addicted to these things. Your body is craving them. And with drugs and smoking and alcohol, you can give them up. You never have to have them again in your life. But we're human. We have to eat. We need food, otherwise we die. And so if you're a food addict, what exactly do you do when you're addicted to eating? You're addicted to the one thing that you cannot give up. What do you do? And the only way I've been able to explain that to people is trying to find a balance. I cannot tell myself that I can't have sugar ever again. I can't tell myself that, because the moment I tell myself that, I'm going to go, I want it even more now. I want
Yeah.
more. Give me
No,
all the chocolate.
yeah, we both agreed the other day that, you can't beat yourself up on it. If you, for example, you go out, I quite often have to go out with my day job and everything. I stay away from home quite a bit. And the number of times I eat something and then I think, oh, crap, that was so unhealthy. But it's like, well, shit happens. Don't beat
Yeah.
yourself up about it. Just don't do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So,
Exactly. We have to be able to adapt, because life needs to be adaptable. We can't be constant in wherever we're going and whatever we're doing, because we wouldn't be able to enjoy ourselves. It's like if me and my daughter go out, I'll go, right, I'm going to take pack lunch. However, sometimes we'll go out for a morning and then it will turn into the whole day. I have no food, I have no water. What can I go and get that's healthy? And like you said, something as simple as going and grabbing like a ready-made salad from Tesco's, you think, yeah, I'll grab a salad, that'll be absolutely fine. But when you actually look at it, and the dressing or whatever oil, it's got a ridiculous amount of calories. I might as well have eaten a burger. So you feel like you're making these healthy choices when actually we've kind of been programmed to make healthy choices that actually don't really work out for us, because ultimately the calorie content is what's going to get you with regards to gaining weight. And so I could eat 10 bags of crisps a day at 99 calories. That's only 1,000 calories. I would lose weight that way. But tomorrow I would feel like death. I'd have a food hangover. I wouldn't want to
yeah.
get out of bed. And so making sure that you are doing these things. And one of the big things for me is making sure that I know what I'm eating for the week. So my dinners and things, if I've got things scheduled, it makes it a lot easier for me to stay within that plan or within that calorie intake. I do a lot of batch cooking and things like that, so I'll make like chili con carne, I'll make stews, I'll make casseroles, and they'll have potatoes in them, but I'll concentrate more on the meat and the veg than I will the potatoes. So there are easy ways of doing things. But if you're out and about and you've got no other option and you think you're making the healthy choice, you realize afterwards you haven't. You've got to be able to go, okay, look, I've done it. And there's nothing that I can do about it now. I've just got to make sure that I don't make that mistake again. And it's making that effort. It's making that effort. And so many of us, we don't have that effort in us. Some of us are so tired that we can't even go out and make dinner and go in the kitchen and make dinner overnight. We're just exhausted. But we try our hardest, and that's all we can do. We try
Yeah.
and try and try.
And that's a reflection too of the whole society, as far as going down the road. I'll just pop down the road and grab something to eat. And
Yeah.
you can't pop down the road and grab something to eat that's healthy at all. None of your outlets are healthy. None of the food in, like you said, Tesco's, or I use Aldi and so on. It's very difficult to grab food off the shelf that's healthy, that doesn't require cooking. It doesn't require going home and sorting it out and making it into a meal.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends on X and so on are carnivore, so they eat only meat and maybe a couple of vegetables, but primarily just meat. And most of that has to be cooked, because then you think, oh, okay, well, I'll eat luncheon or I'll eat salami and stuff. And then you got all the other people saying, oh, no, they're full of nitrates, they're full of salts, they're a processed food, let's face it. And so they can be damaging as well. And so the only way you get around that is to basically cook all your food. And it means it's really difficult. If I drive on Friday this week, I'll be driving down to London from Leeds. It's a 4-hour drive. I'll call into the services on the way down for a wee stop and stuff. But all of the food is absolute shite. There's no food I will buy at any of the services that's even remotely healthy, in my
No,
perspective.
I think there are a lot of places nowadays as well that I find that are doing such a good job of saying that they're healthy. There are some really, really cool vegan restaurants that are popping up near where I live now. And the whole idea of being vegan means you eat loads of vegetables because you don't eat processed foods, you don't eat meat, you don't eat anything that comes from an animal. And so automatically in your head you go, it's vegan, it must be healthy. Well, actually, no, that's not the case. Barbecue Pringles are vegan, they are not healthy. We have to be
Wow.
able to know what we're eating. And so when you go to a restaurant, even if it's a vegan restaurant, you're still going to have 10 ton of coconut milk. You're still going to have added sugar. Even if it's brown, it's still sugar. You just don't know what's going into these meals that are being prepared for you.
No, no. So what does your current diet look like, just roughly? Is it primarily, I mean, you did mention before with your stews and stuff, with your casseroles, the sort of stuff you put in.
Yeah. Yeah, because of my gastric bypass, I find it quite hard to digest meat, protein wise. So I find it a lot easier if I slow cook things. And so, like I said, I will do chicken casserole with loads and loads of carrots and pearl barley and things like that. I'll do beef stew. I'll do chili con carne. I'll do all kinds of vegan recipes as well. So there's like a vegan dal with lots of butternut squash and sweet potato and all things like that. So I find it a lot easier to eat food when it has been slow cooked. If I was to go out and grab a burger or something, I will get halfway through that burger and go, oh my God, no, I can't eat anymore because it's processed. It's not good.
Yeah.
But the majority of the time, like if I'm at work, there's constantly soup. So I'll just batch cook a load of soup. So it'll be like what did I eat just now? A butternut squash and chili soup. I'll do tomato, red lentils, all kinds of different soups. So there's things like that that go into my diet quite a lot. But I'm not going to lie, I love bread. I love bread. It's my favorite. If I could eat bread for the rest of my life, I would. I have to stop myself, but I would. And so if I'm making a sandwich rather than having a great big massive sandwich, which I'm probably not going to eat the majority of because of how small my stomach is now, I'll buy those very small little, they're called Warburton's thins. They're kind of little square things and they're like 99 calories. And that will give me my kind of bread craving, as it were. I can go, yeah, I've had some bread, and that's what it were. There are things like bagel thins, so they're quite thin, but they're protein thins, and so you're getting the protein that you need. One of the biggest things that they told me after my gastric bypass was to make sure that I was prioritizing protein over everything else. And so that is something that I do even now, 3 years, 4 years, nearly 4 years out. I always eat the protein first.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was about to ask that because that's what a lot of people, and especially a lot of women, do tend to not eat enough protein.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I would agree with that.
yeah,
100%. Before there was no way that I would just not eating the protein that I eat now. I don't really like the taste of like protein shakes and things like that. I recently found one that I can kind of add to water, which is really, really nice. that one I quite like. It kind of tastes like drinking an ice lolly, which is nice because then it kind of gives you that little sugar fix that you need. So I will do that as well. So there'll be like maybe one protein water a day that's got something like 20 grams of protein in it. And then for the rest of the day, it's constantly, right, I need to chicken and veg, and it's a lot of that. And one of the things as well that I find I eat now, which I didn't eat before, was cottage cheese. I will quite happily eat a hell of a lot of cottage cheese and a hell of a lot of hummus as well, because chickpeas are really, really good,
Yeah.
quite high in protein. So I find myself eating hummus with carrot sticks and peppers and things like that all the time. So they're really, really good ways of getting your protein in. A lot of people find getting that protein in really hard, but the way I think of it is one chicken breast is something like 19 grams worth of protein. So if I cook a chicken breast and I've eaten it throughout the day, that's already sort of 20 grams. Then I've had my water, which is another 20 grams of protein. That's already it's over halfway there. We have to make a more conscious effort. And like I said, for those people that are vegan, with the chickpeas, things like that, they're such a good source of protein.
Yeah, you've also got mushrooms and all sorts of stuff that have got protein in them, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that is a big thing with a lot of vegetarians and vegans, of course. They eat lots of veggies and stuff, but again, they need to be reminded of where is my protein coming from?
Yeah,
And a lot of the time, they're just, like you say, they're just not getting enough protein. And even with me, I was going to the gym and everything else, working out, trying to build a bit of muscle, lose a bit of fat, and trying to get enough protein in my diet. And I eat lots of meat. I have no hang-ups. And, I've got a proper stomach and everything else. So there's nothing preventing me from, but even then, eating enough protein some days can be challenging.
absolutely.
It's
I
kind of
think
not.
it's supposed to be sort of, I believe it's supposed to be like 1 gram of protein for what you weigh. So if you weigh 76 kilos, you're supposed to eat 76 grams of protein a day, so that you do not lose muscle mass. That's what they told me when I was losing weight after the gastric bypass. It's, please make sure that you're getting enough protein, otherwise your muscles will deplete. And so in my head, I'm kind of, right, well, I need to eat this.
Yeah.
What I'm sitting at the moment might be around 80 kilos, possibly, with the 12 stone 6. So I'm trying my hardest to eat that protein. And the best thing about that is, as well, is protein is the one thing that's going to fill you up the most. You are not going to snack as much if you have filled up on your protein, because that's the one thing I find myself doing constantly, like I said, is just going and eating. Oh, I'll just eat a biscuit. Oh, I'll just eat this. And you have to stop yourself from doing that. And one of the best ways to stop yourself from doing that is making sure that you are getting your protein in there.
Yeah, and of course the biscuits and stuff, importantly, they've got sugar in them, which is why you like them, but B, they're just so useless as far as any sort of nutrition is concerned, whereas your protein, at least it's got nutritional capabilities. Getting back to that 1 gram per gram of body fat, if you're trying to put muscle on, with all of because some people will be listening and in the gym world, then they always talk about 1 gram per per not yeah per pound of body fat, of body mass. So in that case, I'm 73 kilos, which works out at 73 times 2.2. 73 times 2.2 is 160 grams. So there's a lot of, and I think 1.5, actually, I do remember now, 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. I think that's what most people average out at if they're trying to increase muscle or that sort of scenario. But certainly 1 gram is pretty darn good. And if you're not in a process where you're trying to rebuild yourself, then if you're in a position where you have to rebuild parts of your body for whatever reason, which could be metabolic, these people who have been anorexic all their lives and so on, they need to rebuild. And in that instance, that it's that extra protein that makes all the difference. Mm.
This is it exactly. So when I was losing weight rapidly, I was told at very least you need to be getting the amount of protein for what you're weighing at that time. And so that was to stop my muscles from depleting, because if
Mm.
you're losing weight that fast, your muscles are going to go along with the fat. And so that was why we was, as bariatric patients, that's why we're told that.
Yeah, and that's really important because there are so many people that do the likes of Weight Watchers and Slimming World and stuff. I'll probably get sued for saying this, but when you lose weight, a lot of without eating enough protein, then a lot of, like you've just said, a lot of the body weight that you lose that you'll think is great because my body weight's going down on the scales, and it's not necessarily fat you're losing at all. Of course, it's muscle.
Mm.
And then when you stop dieting, you put all that weight back on plus more because you haven't got the muscle mass now.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's a
I'm
real bugger.
absolutely 100% living proof that these diets don't work. Don't get me wrong. I know a few people that have changed their lives via Slimming Worlds and Weight Watchers and this, that, and the other, and they have lost a dramatic amount of weight. I've actually got a member of my family who was like Weight Watchers Woman of the Year, and she is still, even now, at a really, really good weight, but she changed her lifestyle. She changed her whole way of eating to that Weight Watchers way of eating. And that's how she's done it. The moment you stop doing those diets, the Slimming Worlds, the Weight Watchers, cabbage soup, whatever it is, the moment you go back to eating how you ate before, you're going to gain that weight straight
Yeah,
back.
for sure.
Unless you are changing your life for the rest of your life, you're going to end up putting that weight back on. So for the majority of the people that go on these diets, it doesn't work. It's not a long lasting effect.
No, and a lot of those are also calorie restrictive, which certainly I'm ketogenic. So and the same with the carnivores, we don't like it when people talk about calories because as far as we're concerned, we eat until we're full. For you, of course, eating till you're full is pretty darned easy. Um, but we eat till we're full. And then because we're not eating the sugary stuff, then we don't have problems with overeating. And we don't have problems with because we're eating enough protein and stuff, protein and natural fats, we don't get hungry again in 2 hours' time. So we stay full until next meal. And it works really well. And so a lot of these slimming worlds and Weight Watchers and so on, they do work on a calorie restriction, and it's I would hate to be hungry all the time. That would be
And this is the
really
thing.
annoying.
I know, yeah, and this is the thing. I think since having the gastric bypass, I think that my body has actually kind of kicked itself back into the metabolism, as it were, because before I don't think I had one. And so now, before I would eat 3 meals a day plus all of the other snacks and God knows what else in between. And I can't remember feeling hungry. It wasn't that I felt hungry, therefore I ate or overate. I didn't. I don't remember feeling hungry at that size, at that bigger size. Now I'm physically hungry and I go, oh, I need to eat. And then you go off and you find something to eat, and this is quite a new experience for me because I don't ever really remember feeling hungry. I can remember eating because I wanted to eat. And that's the difference. There are so many people that will go, well, I'm constantly hungry. I actually feel like I'm constantly hungry now rather than before. And now I can overeat. I can stand out there and eat 3 or 4 biscuits. I can, eat 2 or 3 bags of crisps. But if you're making that conscious effort in your mind not to do that. In the bariatric community, we call them slider foods. And that's because you slide right back into your bad habits. So those crisps, those biscuits, those cakes, those things that are really, really easy to eat that are not going to fill you up. And in half an hour's time, you're going to go, oh, I'm still hungry. What am I going to eat now? They're called slider foods. That's what we call them in the bariatric community.
Right,
And
okay.
they're called that because you slide right back into your bad habits.
Incidentally, I read a book it's a year ago now, and there's a product in the sugar that's called fructose, and it actually overtakes your hormone that makes you feel full, and so that's why you end up eating more and more and more because it literally stops your body, stops your hormones from telling you I've eaten enough. And it's actually
Oh,
designed, it goes right back to caveman days. It's designed that in midsummer, late summer, when all the berries and fruit are ripe on the trees, which are full of sugar, um,
mm,
it's designed to make us want to eat as much as possible. So we actually put fat on so that we can survive the winter. It's called
yeah,
fattening up for Christmas, effectively over here, but fattening up for winter. Um,
that makes
and
total.
Yeah, it was a major survival component of the human race. Of course, now
Mm,
that same survival component has come back to bite us because this fructose, which is part of all sugar, is in everything. And so we're continually in this get fat for winter mode. And
get fat for any time of the year mode.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
what objective you carry on?
one of the things that I was going to say, one of the things that I can remember learning on this crazy bariatric journey was that sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. That blew my
Yep.
mind a little bit. I was like, that makes total sense for me. Before you have bariatric surgery, especially on the NHS, you are asked to do what's called a liver reduction diet. And the liver reduction diet is very restrictive. Some people that are really, really, really obese are only allowed to drink 3 pints of milk a day for 2 weeks before their surgery. And that's to shrink the liver so that they can get to your stomach to operate on it. I didn't do that one. I done one where I was eating quite minimal, but I can remember going and standing in my kitchen and just almost in tears because I wanted sugar. It was like I was a drug addict just looking for the drugs. And I can remember leaving the kitchen and going, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. And so things like this on this journey have absolutely blown my mind. The fact that sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine is just crazy, and they put it in everything that we
Yep.
eat. It's mind blowing.
And that's why it's so frustrating because the whole population in general is getting fatter
Mm,
and sh- people know it's because of sugar. It used to always be blamed on fat. That's why we were always told, certainly in my generation, don't eat saturated fat. It's bad for you. It's going to clog your arteries. It'll give you a heart attack and you're going to die. And then there was cholesterol. Don't eat any foods high in cholesterol because they're going to clog your arteries and make you die.
yeah,
And it turns out it's all bullshit. And all of these things were actually because of sugar, not because of cholesterol and not because of saturated fats, because of sugar. And yet authorities know this now. And
yeah,
and yet we still, you walk into the grocery store and 80% of the products you buy in the grocery store that are food related are going to have a load of sugar in them. And at
yeah.
some stage, it's going to have to stop, but it's not going to be for a wee while.
I can remember reading somewhere once, a few years ago now, that the reason that everything else was blamed was because the sugar companies kind of took over the advertising side of things. And so the sugar companies were the ones putting it out there. No, it's the fat that you need to watch out for. It's nothing to do with the sugar. It's to do with the fat. I'm sure it was an American um, article that I was reading, but I can remember reading it was along the lines of, no, it's the sugar companies telling you that it's nothing to do with the sugar. It's the fat, it's the cholesterol, it's this, it's that, it's the other, and it was never sugar.
Yeah.
That would make sense, wouldn't it?
Well, that's the thing. And I saw a thing the other day that Nestle has a scientific lab to study foods. And a lot of the time, all of these studies that come out and experiments, they've been subsidized. You don't see that. They've been subsidized by the big pharma. Either the big pharma, who are making money, as in PH Pharma, who are
Mm-hmm.
making money out of meds, or the food companies like Sanitarium and stuff. These are massive, massive companies making shed loads of money. They don't want people to think I shouldn't eat sugar. What's going to happen to all of the cereals? It's such a massive industry as the breakfast cereal industry. And
Oh,
all
God,
of it is jam packed full of sugar.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yep.
makes total sense that.
So, where do you want to be in the future? Do you have longer term aspirations as far as this is concerned?
Do you know what I want to be? I want to be happy. That's all I want. It sounds ridiculous for an almost 40-year-old to say it, but I just want to be happy. And I want to feel healthy. I want to be able to go out and run around with my 9-year-old daughter. I want to be able to go on a plane and not have to ask for a seatbelt extender. I want to wear a bikini and not give a shit about what anybody says about my body. That's all I want. And I'm pretty certain that's all anybody wants from their life. And don't get me wrong, I will sit here and tell you that this food and this food and this food is bad for you. But if you're eating it in moderation every now and then, please do. Make yourself happy. Make sure that you are happy doing what you want to do. But it's all got to be in moderation. With regards to food, it has to be in moderation. You want to have a bit of chocolate, have a bit of chocolate. Don't eat the whole bar. And this is how I have had to learn myself. Don't be so hard on yourself. Get up every morning and try. That's all we can do, is try our best. And essentially, if this is the size that I've got to be for the rest of my life, then I will be more than happy with that. More than happy with that. Because I have been through such an amazing transformation and such an amazing struggle for the majority of my life. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be happy with who I am, with what I look like, with my weight, with everything that goes with it, so that ultimately my daughter grows up and she's happy with herself too, no matter what size she is, no matter what she looks like. That's all I want from life, is just to be happy.
Happy and healthy, you've summed it up.
Exactly.
That's really good. Okay. Have you got anything else that you want to say?
No, I don't think so. I think I've covered most of the bases.
Good.
The one most important thing that I can tell anybody that's on a weight loss journey is make sure you drink 2 liters of water a day. Make sure. That is the biggest thing. Especially, I tell you what, for women, it's a huge deal as well, because especially when you start getting to my age and your skin starts going, drink your water. You need to be hydrated. Your body is not going to process foods properly if you are not hydrated. Your skin will be dry. Your scalp, your hair will be dry. Make sure you're drinking your water. That is the greatest thing that I can tell anybody. As I sit here now drinking my water in a cup.
Yeah.
Drink your water.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Carlie, for coming on here. We listeners won't know this because will have cut it out, but we got off to a rocky start as far as my processing of Zoom was concerned, so I apologize for that. But yeah, thank you very much for turning up, and I wish you all the best in the future.
Well, thank you so much for having me and talking to me and asking me all these lovely questions. It's nice to be able to pass on some information.
That's right. And I think there's lots of people out there who will be either in your, certainly in your position that you were in before all of this began. There'll be people who are feeling like there's no answer. This is just their life. This is what they've got to look forward to forever. And it's just not. We can all do something about it. There are ways to do something about it.
Absolutely. Like I said, get your mind right first. Get your mind right first and get up every morning and try your best. That's it. That's all we can do.
Perfect. Good. All right. And on that note, I will say au revoir. So
thank you very much, Lisa.
All right. Thanks, Carlie. Okay.
You're welcome. See you later.
Bye-bye.